But all I remember is that it was just like hot and not like sexy time hot, but like temperature hot. So this is no, jeez. But we are in the middle of a heat wave. It's multiple points of view. It's multiple timelines. It is not multiple points of view. There's a sinkhole. There's sort of this very, and you're gonna find out like why she doesn't like us anymore, basically. Why she doesn't like us anymore. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today I'm gonna talk about a bunch of books that I think would be fun to read in the summer. So we are kind of totally in a bit of a heat wave here in New York, and I'm kind of totally not at all happy about it, but got me to thinking about some books that are perfect for the summertime. So I've pulled a whole mess of books, most of which I've read, two which I think it's only two that I haven't read that I want to read this summer. So I thought we would dive into them. And what's that song? The Heat Is On? I feel like the heat is on / it's too darn hot. And here's a bunch of books that maybe I think, well, I do think are appropriate for the season. Here we go. So the first book I'm going to recommend is definitely in the dark and messed up category, but I promise there is some levity in this pile as well. But starting in my wheelhouse with Samantha Downing's He Started It. So her new book is coming out in July, but if you can't wait / can't get enough of her, He Started It is a terrific summer read. And I picked this one because it follows a family road trip. And when three siblings, I was gonna say three sisters, but it's Beth, Portia, and Eddie, were kids, they had to take this cross-country road trip in the summer with their grandfather. And we fast forward a couple decades later and the grandfather has passed away. But one of the stipulations in his will is in order for them to inherit his money, they need to retake that exact same road trip and scatter his ashes at the end. And sounds simple enough, but totally not that simple. So they hit the road, they relive the road trip, you get past and present, and it is fantastically dark and messed up. But summertime road trip vibes with the fam. What could possibly go wrong? So the next book I'm going to recommend is one I actually just talked about in my May wrap-up, and it's Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blau. And this is set in the 70s in Baltimore in the summer. It is hot as can be in Baltimore in the summer. And this is the coming-of-age story about Mary Jane, who is 14 years old and spends the summer as a nanny for a family down the street who's kind of new in town, the Cohens. And dad's a doctor, mom's stay at home, and they have a young daughter. And Mary Jane comes from a super conservative family, and the Cohens are anything but. And this is the summer that sort of opens up Mary Jane's eyes to a whole new world of what's out there, and she falls in love with it. So Dr. Cohen is a psychiatrist, and he has cleared his summer schedule because a famous rock star is coming to live with them while he helps him overcome his addictions and dry out, so to speak. And his movie star wife moves in with them as well. And Mary Jane basically has like a front row seat to sirens. So Mary Jane gets exposed to sort of this summer of love and freedom and sex and drugs and rock and roll, and she loves it, and she's just forever changed by it. And it's just such a great coming of age story, and super hot in Baltimore in the summer in the 70s. So the next book is also about summertime jobs. It's The Cousins by Karen McManus. So I also read this one pretty recently and already talked about it, but this is about three cousins, Aubrey, Millie, and Jonah. And they have received a letter from their grandmother, who they have never met before, inviting them to come work at her island resort. So she has an island off of Cape Cod, so it's sort of a third fictional island added to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and they kind of barely know each other. So there's a lot of family drama in this one because years ago, their parents all received a letter from their mom's lawyer basically disowning them and saying, you know what you did. But the thing is, all the parents are like, wait, what did we do? Their father's already passed away, but since they received that letter, they have had no contact with their mom. These kids have never met their grandmother before, and there's like total mystery of why they're being invited to the island. The parents basically force their kids to take this summer job because they want them to get back into their good graces with their grandmother. They want to get back into the will. They want to get back into the family. They want to finally understand what it is they did all those years ago, because they swear they just don't know. So we get the mystery in the past, mystery in the present. We get multiple points of view, all the cousins, and then one of the moms of one of the cousins in the past. And we find out what happened back then and what's going on now. So this is sort of light, easy, fun, good time read. The next book I have is a total love story, and it's called Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. So I read this book a couple years ago and I totally loved it, and totally surprised me how much I loved it, because it's not my usual jam, you guys know. But this is about first loves, it's about second chances, and I totally fell in love with Macy and Elliot, who are... They meet when they're kids, they're like the best of friends, then it becomes something more, and then in present day, they're meeting, they literally run into each other in a coffee shop. They haven't spoken in over a decade because of something that happened one night. So we see this in two different points, or two different timelines. So we see them as children growing to teenagers as they fall in love, and then we see them in the present day. And it's very much, like I said, first love, second chances. You're trying to figure out what happened in the past. And they meet because Elliot's family has a house outside San Francisco where they live, and then Macy and her dad have a summer house that they go to. So the core of their love story is like summertime romance. And I loved it so much. This is definitely a book that I need to read again. It's, like I said, it's been a couple years. This is the only Christina Lauren I've ever read, and I just think it's absolutely, absolutely brilliant. The next book is one that I talked about in my isolated thriller trope, favorite trope ever, and it's The French Girl by Lexi Elliott. And this one is about 6 friends from Oxford who get a summer house on the French countryside, and we get the summertime vacation-y vibes to it. And there is a neighbor named Severine who kind of comes over and inserts herself into the group, and not everybody's totally jazzed about it. And the thing is, that week is the last time anybody saw Severine. And then we fast forward 10 years, and everyone's kind of moved on with their lives, and they're still kind of intertwined a bit, but the missing case of Severine is reopened because they actually find her body at the French country house where these 6 friends had stayed. So we get multiple timelines. We get trying to figure out what's happening in the present, in the past, secrets, what people will do to protect their secrets, to protect their lives, protect their livelihood. And then we get all that good friendship, rivalry, sort of like past animosities and jealousies and competition and just complicated, dark and messed up relationships between people. So, basically everything that I like in a book. So yeah, give it a go. Another book that I'm totally anxious to reread is Angels by Marian Keyes. And this is one of her earlier books. And she writes a lot about a family called the Walshes. And there's 5 sisters, and they each kind of get their own book. So this is one of the books in the Walsh sister series, and this is about Maggie. And in this book, Maggie finds out that her husband has been cheating on her, and that her boss is getting ready to fire her. And she lives in Ireland, and she just needs to get away. So she flies out to Los Angeles to kind of lick her wounds and hang out with her best friend and just escape everything that she's dealing with back at home. And this is about her time in LA. So I feel like summer, beach, she's like hanging out with the Hollywood types. She is exposed to like this whole new world. And I just think of summertime when I think of California. So this is like another great family story, friendship story, relationships, kind of finding yourself, finding your own way, finding a way to pick yourself up after bad things happen to you. And it's just, Marian Keyes is just smart and witty and just writes really complicated relationships and weaves such great humor and wit into her stories. And I just love her to pieces. So I could not make a list without putting her on it. So the next book I haven't read yet, and it is called The Weekend Away by Sarah Alderson. And I read Friends Like These 2 years ago now, maybe? And I loved it. I devoured it. It was like a dark and messed up female friendship. This is also about 2 friends. I don't know how dark and messed up it is, but fingers crossed. So this is about Orla and Kate, and they are on vacation in Lisbon, and it says 2 friends go on holiday and only one comes back. So they've got like this perfect place that they're staying, and they decide to just go out for their first night, kick off their vacation. But the problem is when Orla wakes up the next morning, Kate's not there. So Orla's trying to piece together what happened the night before and kind of retrace all of their steps, and comes to find out that Kate has been holding a huge secret, or hiding a huge secret. So it says, Lisbon holds the secret of what happened that night, but the truth lies closer to home. So like I said, super optimistic. I have a feeling this is gonna be like a good fast read, and I'm hoping there's some dark and messed up female friendship in this, because I do totally enjoy that also, but I'll let you guys know. Another old favorite of mine, which is also a coming of age story, is Who Will Run the Frog Hospital by Lori Moore. And I talked about this a while ago too in one of my, I'm gonna reread some of my favorites books, and I totally reread this book in 2019, I wanna say. And this is about, again, a coming of age story. So it's this woman, Barry, and she's kind of reminiscing about her summer that changed everything. And she had this summer job working at this amusement park, and her best friend was a girl named Sills. And they're in high school, and Sills is like a little bit faster, a little bit cooler, and Barry just kind of totally looks up to her and is mesmerized by her. And she's sort of like her bad friend and her wild friend and her friend that just exposes her to like the whole new world. And I totally had that friend when I was 13 years old, so maybe that's why I connect with this book. But it's a super short read, but it's definitely has like sentimental vibes, and there's so many good lines in it. I mean, I have like dog-eared and written all over this one, but if you're looking for just a good, like solid book about friendship and, like I said, coming of age, growing up, I just really, really enjoyed this. And I also actually want to say this takes place in the 70s, kind of like Mary Jane. Maybe that's why I also love Mary Jane so much. But yeah, it's definitely, I want to say like mid-late 70s for this one too, but just such a good read. Love this one. The next book I have is definitely more on the heavier side of things, and it's one that is totally on my reread list, and it's Time to Kill by John Grisham. So this is his first book, and for some reason, and I don't know if it's just me projecting the movie on the story, but this is Mississippi in like the mid-late 80s, and I feel like it's summer, because in the movie they were always like sweating, or there was like a fan flapping in the window, or like an air conditioner that wasn't working. But I just remember it being really, really hot in the book, and I don't, or in the movie, and I don't like just not, I mean, Matthew McConaughey, yeah, but I just remember it being like really hot, and I feel like that added to the tension and added to, it's just like escalated everything that was happening in the book. And this is, like I said, definitely a heavy book. It is courtroom drama, it is investigative, it is race relations, it is class, it is such a division in this small town of Clanton, Mississippi. And we have a young girl, I want to say she's like 12 years old, she's walking home from the grocery store, and these two men snatch her off the side of the road, and they are just drunk and gross, awful human beings, and they grab her and they beat her and they rape her and they leave her for dead. And then they go to a bar and they brag about it because they are useless human beings. And they wind up getting arrested. She winds up not dying. And when they are brought to court, her father shows up at court with a gun and shoots them. And obviously things explode, and it becomes this divisive situation in the town where, was it execution? Was it murder? Is it vigilante justice? Is it revenge? Is he justified in doing what he did? And to add to this extremely complex and controversial conversation already, the two men who attacked the girl were white men, and the judge is white, and a lot of the town is white. And the girl who was raped and beaten and her father are black. And it becomes, as I said, this commentary on race relations, the escalation of all of it. It is such a fascinatingly well done, painful, eye-opening, raw story in so many different ways. And it's, I think I said this already, it's Grisham's first book. I read The Firm first, and then I read this. It like sealed the deal for me. It made me fall in love with him as a writer. This is by far my favorite of his books. So I talked about this in my haul recently. I'm gonna reread it. It's heavy as can be, literally heavy. But I just remember it being like deep, hot summer when this book took place. So it felt like a good pick for this list. So the next book I have is one that I bought with the pure intention of reading it in the summer, and it's Beach Read by Emily Henry. So everyone who's read this book loves this book, and I am optimistic that I'm gonna be one of those people too. So this is about two writers, and one of them writes literary fiction, and then the other one writes romance. And it says, when she pens a happily ever after, he kills off his entire cast. They're polar opposites. And they are living sort of in neighboring houses on the beach for the summer because they're both there to write their books, but they both have like a horrible case of writer's block. So they hatch a deal where they are going to basically like write each other's story. So he's gonna write something happy, she's gonna pen the next great American novel, and they're gonna try and help each other through their writer's block. And I don't know if it's like hate to love or like friends to lovers or just they're totally cool with each other and they fall in love, or maybe they don't fall in love at all, but I have a feeling they fall in love. So again, I've just heard such great things about it, and how can you not read a book called Beach Read in the summer? So the next book is another one that I read earlier this year, and it's Good Neighbors by Sarah Langan. And this takes place in the summer out on Long Island, where a sinkhole basically messes up everybody's life. So this is definitely like dark suburbia. You've got families that are pitted against each other. We have a daughter of one of the families who falls down the sinkhole. We have people blaming each other for it. This is like the darkness of neighbors. This is how like one wrong word can send people down a path. It's sort of how people are sheep following other people, sort of metaphorical pitchforks chasing a family down the road. And it's like dark and complex and super interesting commentary, but also sort of a fascinating story about these parents who act like complete children and the children who are the mature ones in the group. And I just really enjoyed it. This is my first Sarah Langan book, and I just liked the darkness and the twistedness of it all. I read this book super quickly also, and she has written some horror books before she wrote this one. And when she was trying to figure out, of course I listened to like podcasts and things with her, and she was saying when she was first writing the book, she was trying to figure out kind of the monster of the book, and it just wasn't working and it wasn't working. And she figured out then that the monster of the book were the people in the neighborhood and were the neighbors. So she didn't actually need a horror monster to make it scary because the people in the neighborhood were scary enough as it was. So this isn't horror in a general sense, but like the horrifying reality of how horrible people can be. And I was totally here for it. And now for some summer camp vibes, we have The Last Time I Lie by Riley Sager. So this is his second book. This is definitely all the creepy summer camp feels. And we have two different timelines. We have mystery in the past and mystery in the present. And this girl named Emma had gone to Camp Nightingale when she was younger. And she was in a cabin with three girls who were older than her. And amongst other things, like learning how to play Two Truths and a Lie, she also wants to just like be welcomed by them and be a part of their group and be friends with them. And one night the three of them go out and they are like, nope, you're not coming with us, you're staying behind, like you can't come. And then those three girls were never seen again. So the camp shut down, and then all these years later the camp is reopening, and Emma now is a successful artist and she gets invited back to the camp. And sure enough, weird things start happening, and it's just this great fun, like I said, twisty kind of summer camp, Riley Sager doing his thing vibe. So if you're a summer camp kind of a person, it says she thinks she's laying old ghosts to rest, but really she's returning to the scene of the crime. So I love him. And also, you guys probably know by now if you've been watching me, his new book comes out on June 29th. So much like Samantha Downing, if you don't want to wait that long or you just want more of him, this is a perfect one of his books to read in the summer. And then I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that Malibu Rising is going to be a book that you're going to want to read too. So I'm not quite halfway into it. It's on my nightstand. But this is August 1983. It is Taylor Jenkins Reid doing her thing. So far, I'm 100% into it. There are 4 siblings. They are the son of a famous rock star, and they are throwing the party to end all parties every year. Everybody and their dog comes to this party, and by the end of the night, they have literally burned the house down. So how can you go wrong with this? You can't. It's surfing, it's Malibu, it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. Done, 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 done. So that's gonna do it for my summertime reads. So just trying to put you in the space of things that are hot, 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 literally. But let me know what you're picking up this summer, if you have a recommendation for a great summertime read, and we can chat about all those things down below. But thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out today, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.